So, Chris, I think you've actually spoke to this individual already about this show.
No, dude, no, you can't.
Yellow Flash did this.
No, oh fuck.
And I told him if he was going to do this, he was supposed to be here too. So I apologize
Flash?
to everybody.
Oh Jesus.
Because I love Yellow Flash to death, but he is like a big brother sometimes. We just
I love Yellow Flash. I thought Lofty Pixels was coming out.
He is.
How's that for a low war?
But I got to give Yellow some shit because I'm like, if you're going to do this to both Lofty and everybody else, because I think Lofty and I have maybe talked twice in our life. And a lot of the other people haven't met him yet. So, and I don't want him feeling like he's being ganged up here. And Yellow, like I said, being like a big brother, is coming and just kind of set this whole thing up. So I kind of want to punch him in the arm right now, but I still love him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Welcome, Lofty.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah. Yeah, I'm working, but I have like a brief moment I can chat for a bit. I had a 3-hour live stream last night. It was very, very cordial with Mark the Cyborg, and it was a very chill and respectful Rings of Power discussion. So, Chris, I think we can get work together. I think we got it.
All right. Well, some people are glad you're here, but now that you're here and you've had time to reflect, what were the takeaways from the your discussion with Mark? What did you learn, or what did you learn?
We just talked about our disagreements about the production design, about adaptations, and I was trying to understand where he was coming from, and then he kind of did the same. So yeah, I think it was really cool. It was a good conversation. It doesn't have to be. The problem is when you have like, panels with like 5-on-1, it gets a little, heated. But that's just how actually that's mostly just Flashcast. Flashcast is kind of a messy stream in general. But yeah. But no, I wanted to talk about review bombing, if that's okay.
Absolutely. We'd love to get your take on it. Real quick, we have another guest joining us, though, before you get started. Mr. Valiant Renegade is here as well. How you doing, Valiant?
I'm good. I'm sorry I'm late. I was actually busy making a bunch of bot accounts on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes.
I figured as much. Somebody's got to do it.
God,
on that note, Lofty was about to give us
thoughts
on review bombing, so go right ahead.
Yeah, so before then, Valiant, I want to hear your thoughts first on 25 million people watching. Why is this bullshit?
I saw that. I agree. I saw that. I found the number very suspicious because that was the number that David Zaslav and company came out and announced in totality for House of the Dragon just a couple of days after it launched, saying that they actually gained in viewership to the second episode from that 25 million. And that was over the first week. I believe that 25 million was over the first maybe 5 days of the first episode of House of the Dragon, and you're telling me that 25 million watch this. Now, is that possible? Yes, because the reach of Amazon technically is far greater. Yeah, it's far greater than is HBO Max. Now, what they count as a view is another question. So when it comes to being able to compare apples to apples, the only real comparison I think we're going to get from an honest third-party position is going to be from Nielsen. Now, unfortunately, as we all know, it takes Nielsen about 3 to 4 weeks to make those numbers public. So the Nielsen numbers we just got this past Thursday were from August 1st, from a month ago. So it may be, it's going to be another probably 2 or 3 weeks before we see the Nielsen figures on House of the Dragon's first episode, and then another week or two after that before we see Rings of Power. So that's where I am. But I don't know what Amazon's counting as that, because you got 100 million shoppers a day on Amazon that go to the homepage, and if they're putting the thing up there or giving it away for free maybe on Prime as a teaser to get Prime membership or whatever, I don't know.
Well, and then Culture found another interesting point here. He says if all of the 25 million viewers Rings of Power are new to Amazon, they get recorded as first views. So Amazon sees it as a win since the customers only cost them $18.60 each of the $99 annual
now. And again,
so it's like a loss leader kind of thing.
Well, but no, actually, it's
not even
a
loss leader, really.
No, it's a win. Yeah. It's a really cheap customer for them. But that's only if all 25 million of those people are brand new to Amazon. See, they look at it as that's their first view. It's like their concept of an opportunity cost and things like that. But at the same time, there is no way they brought that many new eyeballs into Amazon Prime to see this silly show, and we're never going to know what those numbers are. You know, it's frustrating.
Well, that's the problem with figuring out quote unquote profitability in streaming services, short of actually having some hardcore advertising, as many of them do, but many of them don't. And of course, it's still the big ones that don't, because you really don't know. I mean, that's been the long-standing problem.
Here's another point that I don't know if anybody's thinking of, and this will get us back around to what Lofty wanted to talk about. They're claiming that there's been review bombing. Okay, let's just take them at face value for a second and say, okay, yeah, sure, there was some review bombing. To be able to review the show, reviews, huh? You have to actually watch the show, don't you? Because you don't get to review the show until after it's done, right?
You talking about on Amazon itself?
On Amazon itself.
I've never tried to review an Amazon show.
I'm curious how that works. I've only done it a couple times. In my memory, it only pops up at the end. I don't remember being able to review something before I've watched it. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but on the note of the review bombing and all that kind of business, Lofty, you had said you wanted to say something, so yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about... Yeah, I don't know anything about the Amazon reviews. That's weird to me. I don't pay... Does anyone pay attention to Amazon's... I guess for...
I'm going to try it right now.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well,
I
you do have those people that read Amazon reviews just for fun, like in some books, like How to Avoid Large Ships at Night. I mean, that book has some awesome comments in its reviews. So
I think
there are some.
I think the best review aggregate site, in my opinion, is Letterboxd, because most normies and people who just like culture war people don't even know about it. So what you get is a lot of much more accurate like consensus of what people are thinking about the show in terms of like quality. Because what I'm seeing from Metacritic, right? This is on Metacritic, has a 1.9 audience score out of 1,000 reviews. There's an overwhelming amount of 0 out of 10s. And maybe, I mean, if you guys have a different opinion.
When you say overwhelming amount, what's your basis?
Just go to the user score and scroll down.
I hear you say overwhelming, but I've seen no evidence of it.
Well, no. Just go to Metacritic and scroll down. It's all 0s and 1s.
So, they do break it out on that website. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I see a 0, I kind of just disregard it, because you can hate the show and still give it like a 3. You know what I mean? I think 0s are a much more are a culture war political statement rather than an actual.
And I can see the same thing being said about 10 out of 10s too. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go on IMDb, there's way more 10s than there are. Well, there's 10s and 1s, and then there's like nothing else. So what I do is I just disregard the 10s. I disregard the 1s and 0s. And then you kind of like get an idea of what people are thinking about the show. That's kind of my perspective on the whole review bombing, because I think review bombing is real. I don't think this show is a 0. I'm sorry. It's just, I think people, when they rate it a 0, it's a political statement.
Yeah. I will say though that if you have a lot of 10s and a lot of 1s and not so much in between, you know what that tells me? It's an extremely divisive show. With very little going forward. Because if it had anything going for it, with this many alleged views, it clearly, even if it's not 25 millions, millions upon millions did see it. And if there's so few views in between, that tells me that it's universal agreement that this must be pretty crap. Because if it wasn't, there would have been something in between there.
I don't know about that, because I don't know how many. I would just be willing to bet that the vast majority of people don't go and review things on the internet. I've almost never done it. I do it on Letterboxd.
I would agree.
But I don't go on IMDb.
The vast majority don't have to, because you have a certain subset of people that go and review everything, and there's many of them, and they will always even out the score. And those people are not giving this the average views that they would for other things.
But for example, Metacritic has a 1.9 user score, and IMDb has like a 6.5, right? So what's happening with Metacritic? Well, I think it's just getting review bombed. Like I think it's obvious, right?
Well,
the people
it
that
could be.
love the show are just not reviewing it on Metacritic. Like,
Well,
I don't see
real
any tens,
quick,
you know what I mean?
real quick. Is Metacritic where you review meat? Because I always thought it was Metacritic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Metacritic. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, here's the thing. I mean,
delicious meat, but yeah.
there are a lot of them out there. I mean, IMDb is, of course, owned by Amazon. So bear that in mind. Also, I just checked. I went into the Lord of the Rings page on Amazon Prime. I can leave a review right now. Now, there are no reviews visible yet. But they will accept my review.
How did you
I have
figure
not,
out how to get it? Because I couldn't get to it.
I just simply went to the Rings of Power landing page. It's right at the top of Amazon when you go to Amazon.com. I clicked into it, and then it says write a review. And you can do it. I can leave a 1-star or 5-star or 3-star right now. Write a review. Now, it's not going to show up. It's going to be cached till whenever Amazon lets them out.
Okay, I found it here. That's why. All right. Yeah, because they don't have the reviews up. That's why I was thrown off. Usually you can click on the stars. That's why.
So, but Lofty's right. I mean, Metacritic is pretty skewed. Right now it stands at, and this may be a little bit more updated than when you saw it, Lofty. I've got 1,465 negative reviews, 365 positive, 79 mixed, with a 2.5 user score as of right now on Metacritic. So it's come up a little. But you're right. Look, you can't always trust these things, and I think you're right. Most people don't go online, Rotten Tomatoes and all this. But again, as we've talked about before, review bombing can go both ways. Review bombing
not
can
only
be
that,
ones, they can be tens.
Like I said before, I don't see either side, and I mean either side, really having the time to create the amount of accounts it would take to actually make that big of a difference. And I remember going through this shit clear back with The Last Jedi, for fuck's sake. I mean, that was the whole thing. It's being review bombed. It's being review bombed. It's like, I see equally amount of 10 out of 10s as I do 1 out of 1s or 0 out of 0s, depending on how low the score went. So to me, those are just kind of washing each other out in the end of the day. It was like, I don't understand what the problem is here.
I think it can go both ways. You're right. An example of a positive review bomb that I've noticed, and I did a big deep dive on this years ago, and then I got banned and my whole thread was deleted. But Battle Angel Alita was, in my opinion, I think positively review bombed to an extreme level of. It was another culture war battle between.
Honestly, I would say
Alita
one that was worse
Marvel.
was Zack Snyder's Justice League was probably even more so.
Yeah, well, that's another
side.
But Captain Marvel came out the same exact week as Battle Angel Alita. So we had two films competing, and it was just a culture war review bombing like competition, because you had the left, pumping Captain Marvel up with 10s, and then you had people, the other side pumping Battle Angel Alita, which is not a very good adaptation, by the way. The manga is a much more violent, gritty, aesthetically, interesting than, I don't know. I hate Robert Rodriguez, so I might be biased, but I just think there were so many 10s. Like, I'm just like, this is not a 10 out of 10, guys. It's a Disney Channel romance, but Captain Marvel was the same thing, right? So you saw a lot of 10s there. I just think a lot of people, I wish we would kind of encourage people to be more honest about their just reviewing stuff, as a community, or you know what I mean?
Honestly, I'm not somebody who even really, I don't tell anybody how to review anything, period. I don't know anybody who does. That's one thing that we're not about in the first place. But if people feel like they want to go out and give something a rating or review it, that's their decision. I'm somebody who's not a big fan of numbered reviews anyway, because my taste will change over time. Sometimes I may like something earlier on, and then I'll go back to it and I didn't like it as much, and vice versa. I think that's just an average with most people. And that's where, to me, I won't trust any IMDb number or any of that until it's a movie that's been out for at least 4 or 5 years, and a good number of people have been able to see it, to where I know that number's probably more accurate. Because even Rotten Tomatoes, which is an aggregate and sucks in its case, unless a movie is a little older, I really don't trust their numbers that often.
Yeah, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes ever. You know why? They gave audience rating for Morbius is a 71.
It is 71. A 71. It should be an 81.
5,000 plus verified reviews, right? How are you going to tell me that is not a meme score? People just went and
quote
gave it
unquote verified.
If anything, it should be 91.
Yeah. Oh, come on. You know that's just that entire.
You're
rating
talking
is a
one of the
meme,
few
right?
people who will actually defend Morbius as a good movie.
Well, that's
but
okay.
not
No,
like
I'm not saying
it. Ironically, though, but still.
no. There's definitely people who think Rings of Power is legitimately a 0 and legitimately a 10, and same thing with I guess Morbius, but very few people I'm sure think this is like a perfect.
The
movie,
difference is I'm actually
yeah.
cognitive of the fact that it is not an objectively good film, right? Like that's the difference. I enjoy Morbius for its like the bugs to me are the features in that respect. But no, in this, like getting past the review bombing and stuff, I think it's more of a non-issue, and I think they just try to make it an issue when they need it to be one more so than anything, because look at, what was it, 2 weeks ago, they had The League of Their Own was getting poor ratings, and they were trying to claim it was being review bombed. I'm like, who the fuck gives enough shits about A League of Their Own to actually create a campaign to review bomb it? Nobody. I said, newsflash, you decided to already make something that was progressive, overly progressive, and turn around and remake something that was a beloved film. Nobody is going to be into this. They tried this already several times over with League of Their Own. They tried a TV show. It's just not going to work. Maybe it's just the fact that people think it's a fucking dumb idea and you just need to get over yourself. No, they're literally out there begging for positive reviews. To me, that's the... And they're not even doing ironically or underhandedly. Like, that's the thing I noticed. It was like they were doing it flat out on Twitter. Like, I even retweeted one and did the whole please clap bit. Right? Like, that to me,
I think they're just begging
thing.
for reviews, period. I don't think anybody knows the show even exists.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Jurassic World Dominion is another example. I thought that was a terrible movie, and it has a 77 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like, I guess that's not it's not necessarily positive review bombing, but I just don't trust Rotten Tomatoes really to give an accurate, maybe in like the most vague way, like to me it should be thumbs up and thumbs down. Maybe, I don't know. These percentages to me are just completely inaccurate. And
thumbs
as
up
far
and
as
thumbs down is lame. It
is lame.
There's no nuance to it. But I agree with you, Lofty.
Yeah.
When you see like everyone giving ones, everyone giving 10s, those are like the people who hate it, the people who want to review bomb and love it. I think what you do is you delete those numbers and then do an average of everything in between, which is probably more accurate. So that
they could and that's the thing, is they could give you that option on a lot of these websites, and I think some of them they do, where you can filter out certain ones. And some people are smart enough to do that. Most people just don't give a shit.
You know what's cool about Letterboxd is you can curate your own. You can follow. It's a social media site, so you can let's see here. What's this? Nope, for example, right? It has an average of like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like 136,000 3.5 ratings. But you can follow people, right? You can, like Twitter, you can have your own followers, and you can curate who you think you trust, and basically you can aggregate those people's scores. And like, I just think it's a much better. I think everyone should have a Letterboxd account because, I just think you can see what. Yeah, I just think it's a better site.
Well, what you're describing was what Rotten Tomatoes was 20 years ago.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
You had reviewers you could trust. You could follow those reviewers. You had a lot of public interaction to the movies and whatnot. It was a pretty good and reliable site, and that all changed when it was purchased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the I don't think Amazon. I don't think they should be taken. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, I think, in most cases with everything. So I don't think anybody should be censoring reviews.
And I think what I think what Script is kind of getting more towards Lofty, and I got to say this is the bottom line is the reason that if review, let's just say for sake of argument, just to get past the argument of any of it, that review bombing is an actual thing. Okay. To me, it is a result of what Script is saying. You cannot trust critics anymore. So that is basically a fan movement of people getting out there to try and basically make a balance. And I think that's the kind of thing. And I think we see it more so in those discrepancies, whether we trust the Rotten Tomato scores or not, that we still can't deny there's a huge discrepancy within a certain amount of films, whether you like them or not, or certain other people may like them or not. And it's just, to me, it looks like it's a fan movement more than anything to say, look, we're not going to be silenced or called this or that or the other. But
Yeah, I don't even know what the point of critics are anymore, because I used to follow like various critics and like, oh, I love this guy's back. Actually, Attack of the Show with Chris Gore was like my guy. I was like, yo, I'll watch anything he likes. And then back when G4 was a thing, I was like, I'll follow these guys. Like they were my critics, I would say, for like video game stuff. But nowadays it's like I'm basically just watching YouTubers that I agree with, because like, for example, I think Jeremy Johns, I trust him to give a more accurate, as far as from what I connect with him, what I'm trying to say, more than I do like a generic like EW critic or something. Like I don't know what the point of critics are anymore.
No,
you just said you aligned yourself with a personality. No, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's just like you're pointing out what the strength of YouTube is, which YouTube is authenticity. That's what people want. That's what people want in their news, right? So it's not. This doesn't just apply to reviewing and critiquing media, television, film, comic books, whatever. It also applies to the news. People want more than anything authenticity, and as everything has become more corporatized, whether it's the evening news, whether it's news by outlets like the Washington Post or Newsweek. I have a subscription. Yeah, it's just corporate. It's the corporatization of everything has sanitized everything. There's literally no alternative culture anymore. It doesn't exist. So what YouTube has become is a place where authenticity thrives. I think that's what you're responding to. That's why, like Jeremy Johns, I like him as well. Like I don't. And I follow a bunch of people to get a read.
Stuckman is another one.
Yeah. I mean, there's I consider like Stuckman or Campea or Jeremy Johns they're like a sort of more like your typical critic, right? And then there's people that like also like really know something about a particular type of film or they know the source material like comic books or Lord of the Rings and whatnot. And so I weight those having more credibility depending on what they're reviewing. But I think it's just a matter of like, and I also like to listen to people I don't agree with just because, I want to get a different take, So I think you're responding to that. And me, by the way, when I was on tech, I never had like any TV training. All I did was start a punk rock fanzine out of high school called Film Threat, and then just that as a magazine. And then someone said, "Well, what you say in the magazine is funny. Do you think you could do this on television?" So that kind of kicked off like one TV job, whatever. But YouTube, YouTube is where it's at, in my opinion, because you get people, who know, like you've read all the Lord of the Rings books. I have not. Gary Beekler's read them and the Silmarillion. I think he was as well. So I kind of weight like people who have more knowledge a little better. Someone who's like, I've read every Captain America comic or whatever it is. Like, okay, well, I want to see what that insight and, understanding that adaptations, you have to translate it to real world. A movie's not a book. So it's a different experience. So you're going to lose something, right? Just having, being a big fan of Dune, I love what Denis Villeneuve did. I think he captured the essence of the book. I mean, I still think it should be a series, like 12 hours.
I agree.
But whatever.
Well, we do have to get to some super chats here, but I do think you brought up a good point, Chris, and if I allow me to stroke your ego, if I may, for just a few moments, you are a part of what I would consider the last generation of the true last critics, the last ones who we actually could trust. You are the last bastion of those guys of the Roger Eberts, the Gene Siskel's, the Rex Reeds, those guys who we could actually trust, because you were one of those first people, the last of that generation to be on television before the internet became what it is now, right? And you're right, because now those who, I agree with you, like Stuckman and a lot of those guys, I see them more as mainstream critics than I do like us. Like when I look at us now, like us, I see as the alternative media. And that's where a lot of these folks that are in the chat right now are here for, because they want to hear alternative, views on these things. Richard Roper's one of the only other few last ones I can think of that I trust besides you and a few others that even if I may not agree with everything you guys review, I know that I'm getting your actual thoughts on it.
But also, like, you know, look, movie critic, it's not even a job anymore. I mean, definitely on YouTube it can be, but in mainstream like newspapers and news outlets, it's just, you know, that job is going away very fast.
It's like freelance now.
Yeah, it's all freelance. It's all freelance, but it used to be like those days are kind of over. And I appreciate it. I kind of just have lasted through eras and different mediums.
Yeah.
But I started in, you know, doing print and doing a magazine, right? So I just had no aspirations to do TV because I thought people on TV were stupid because they're mostly overproduced. And then come to find out that's real. And then finally, when I was on G4, it's like, oh, now I can actually kind of be myself on camera. But that's what YouTube is. YouTube is you're yourself on camera. Like you're the to me, the YouTubers that succeed are the ones that are their authentic selves in terms of their opinions. Now, you may not always agree with my opinion, and that's fair. But I think too often, and this is why I think shows like yours, you know, Midnight's Edge in the Morning and the FNT crew and so many others, Yellow Flash, are popular, is because of getting that authentic take, because there's an audience that's been, wait a sec, you told me this movie was good and I went to see it and there's something about it I didn't like. And is there something wrong with me? But other people were pointing that out. And I think too often people have been burned by critics saying it's the best since the last one. You were talking about that earlier, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, the best Marvel movie since the last one. It's like, and then finally at the end of phase 4, critics are finally admitting, yeah, phase 4 was not very good. Like, yeah, they maybe should have stopped it, or they should have had a plan, or they should have actually taken a couple years off to make us miss it, because what they produced is just really, really a mixed bag to, you know, bad to just mixed.
Right.
I have to get back to work, but I just wanted to, before I go, I wanted to just wrap up the conversation. I think it's interesting.
Before you go, you also have a couple of super chats addressed at you.
Oh Lord!
Oh, go for it! Go for it!
Yeah,
go for it, Andre.
Yeah. So we can't do that before you go. So Hood in the Steadfast says for $50 Canadian. First off, it was not 5 against 1 Lofty. It was you and Shad mostly. Shad owned you in that debate. Mark the Cyborg is an incredibly nice guy who didn't push back on your BS takes. You were incredibly rude to Chris and Chad. I was just saying, I have no idea what this is talking about.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of the few things Andre doesn't get to watch too often because it's at a time frame that he's
it was an intense stream.
To be completely honest, I have no idea who you are, but never mind that.
He loves Yellow Flash, but he doesn't get to see the Flash cast. So yeah,
I'm the Quarterings video editor, and I just do some streams here and there. So I don't know, but thank you, Hurin, for your thank you. Yeah. But I know I that's a fair point. I just would push back and say that Mark is a very nice guy, but I also didn't push back against his BS takes because I'm also a nice guy. So yeah, I think you should go watch our conversation. It's pretty interesting on Rings of Power. But
you are definitely one of the most savaged people on YouTube and Twitter.
I know.
Well, and that's one of the things, like with Yellow, he's in the background. He's like fucking Vince McMahon back here trying to get this thing going. I'm like, dude, I do not want to ambush this guy the first time he's on our fucking channel. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to sit here and kiss his ass, but also I don't want you coming in here thinking you're just going to get beat up on either. So, like,
well, Lofty, I'll give you a chance to make it up to me.
Okay.
I'll give you a chance to make it up to me. We do a live stream Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And maybe like halfway between the show, I could bring you on and we'll continue.
That'd be fun.
So that'll be this Wednesday. I don't know what time zone you're in.
Eastern time.
Okay, yeah. So that would be later for you.